When you name your show Dark Side of the Ring, there's a very good chance that just about every single topic you will cover is going to be a bit rough to take for wrestling fans. However, wrestling fans seem we can't have enough of any and all wrestling stories, no matter how dark and grim they get. That also doesn't mean that the subject of each episode is the only thing that's dark about the dark side of the ring. Some of the fellow wrestlers commentating on the events don't always come across smelling like roses either. Hello and welcome to Honor Wrestling Club, and in today's video we will be counting down 9 wrestlers who look terrible on the dark side of the ring, which is a fantastic TV show produced by Vice. However, before we crack on with the list and see who looked worst on Dark Side of the Ring, I'd like to take a moment to firstly thank you for joining us here today at Honor Wrestling Club. Your support really does mean a lot to us. I'd also like to take a moment to ask you to click the subscribe button and the notification bell if you are new here, to show your support and appreciation for the content we make here at Honor Wrestling Club, and to make sure you never miss out on the fun content the club makes. Now, without further ado, let's crack on with the list with number 9. The WWE roster has fun slopping Sunny. The whole wrestling story of Chris Candido and Sunny is totally messed up, and thanks to the actions of Tammy Sitch, her life actions keep informing this story of the trajectory. They met in high school before Gravity even noticed her, and Chris was just a fan. He got into the business and took her along for the ride. Then, for lack of a better term, it was sex, drugs and rock and roll. But no matter how terrible she would become, she was still just a young woman back when this story occurred. On an evening when her body donors were taking on the Godwins, the entire roster did all sorts of things to contaminate the farmers' slop buckets, which are then dumped all over the diva in a horrible rib. At number 8, we have Ric Flair in the Plane Ride from Hell episode and his antics. For all the talk old school wrestlers talk about living their gimmick, some guys should probably do their darndest to live their gimmick without believing in their own gimmick. The Nature Boy built a legacy by claiming he was a kiss-stealing, limousine-riding, well, you know. But during the infamous Plane Ride from Hell in 2002, all sorts of wrestlers were getting rowdy, and one flight attendant shared her story. Rick was doing more than just styling and profiling. In number 7, we have Tommy Dreamer's defence of those antics. Oddly enough, because he's Ric Flair, has seemed to be a fairly acceptable defence of the Nature Boy, no matter his actions. Almost as if, because his contributions to the ring are so great, that, while not acceptable, his actions are forgivable. Well, this is at least what Tommy Dreamer thought. He also didn't just come to Flair's defence, he intimated that the flight attendant who came forward all these years later should have come forward sooner if she was this physically and emotionally distraught over her experience on the plane ride from hell. In number 6, we have Abdullah the Butcher's hardcore style caught up to him. As the madman of the Sudan, Abdullah the Butcher made his name in the wrestling business by being a nasty hardcore brawler who has drawn blood, both his and his opponents, on every conceivable continent that he could have. Towards the twilight of Abby's career, though, he began working with and mentoring a wrestler named Hannibal. It was during this time that it was revealed Abby had contracted hepatitis and possibly gave the disease to Hannibal. Even his friend Tony Atlas revealed that Abby would often use and reuse the same blades on himself and others. In number 5, we have Randy Savage and his overprotectiveness of Miss Elizabeth. Sometimes, the way a documentary team frames its stories can make its subjects look terrible. Sometimes, they really were that terrible though. Well, that's pretty much the judging guide for how each of these entries and others should be judged. Perhaps none are more prevalent than the Macho Man Randy Savage when it came to his treatment of Miss Elizabeth. According to the personalities who were telling the story from way back in Season 1's The Match Made in Heaven, they kept suggesting that Savage wasn't just overprotective of Liz. He'd supposedly keep her locked up in the locker room and cleaning closets away from the rest of the boys. In number 4, we have Vince Russo when he was discussing the Brawl for All tournament. Generally regarded as the most divisive personality in all of the wrestling business, Vince Russo has seemingly been blackballed from the industry. While we all jokingly mock the endless amount of on-a-pole matches, somehow there are no Festivus pole matches. He also came up with a number of very dangerous ideas, and the Brawl for All might be his most dangerous idea. By his own admission, he wanted to do the tournament to simply shut Bradshaw up. His entire flippant attitude during this episode is quite frankly disgusting when you realise that all their careers were basically ended just because Russo didn't like JBL. In at number 3, we have Shawn Michaels' Sunny Days. More sunny stories, more problems for everybody involved. In the ring, no matter what era of Shawn's life he was in, fans generally acknowledge him as one of the GOATs. But in the 90s, Shawn Michaels, the person, was not a decent human being whatsoever. He was all over Sunny, much like a lot of fans had wished they could be, and vice versa. The problem, however, was that Sunny was off and on with Chris Candido, and therefore constantly cheating on no gimmicks needed. According to Tammy in an interview, she wasn't sure how much Chris actually knew, but according to close friends like Terry Runnels and Tom Pritchard, he certainly knew, since the whole locker room knew. In number 2, we have the British Bulldogs' horrible ribs. Dynamite and Jacques Rougeau wanted to hurt each other. When we fans think about ribs in wrestling, generally they're thought to be good-natured, if not sometimes a little out there and even more gross. But the British Bulldogs weren't gross or good-natured thanks to Dynamite's intensity. If he thought a wrestler was being disrespectful, he would spike their drink with sleeping pills at the bar, for example. Once they were out, the Bulldogs headed into their hotel room to defecate in the wrestler's bag and shave their eyebrows. And at number 1, we have Marty Jannetty, thinking he's God's amusement toy. The former rocker doesn't seem to know what is shoot and what is kayfabe anymore. There's Dark Side of the Ring, and then there's Marty Jannetty. Has anyone ever self-sabotaged themselves and bobsledded towards these levels of infamy more than the former rocker? While CM Punk may be on the way, we don't think anyone has quite surpassed Marty Jannetty in terms of insanity. While plenty of fans recognise that Shawn Michaels as one of the very best, HBK has said in the past that he learned from Marty. Imagine if that's true, and Marty's actions didn't do such harm to his career. His Dark Side of the Ring isn't going to help those perceptions either. We've heard plenty of stories regarding possibly dating his stepdaughter and murdering someone. More often than not, it's always Marty who is causing himself more harm than good. And there you have it, there's our list. So what do you think? Who do you think is at the worst reception after being on Dark Side of the Ring? And who do you think's career has fallen off the most following Dark Side of the Ring revelations? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click the subscribe button and the notification bell to make sure you never miss out on any of the fun content we produce here at Honor Wrestling Club. And if you've enjoyed this video, think one of your friends will enjoy it too, be sure to share it with them. Go on, share the positivity and the love that we all have for professional wrestling. Let's build this community together. However, until next time, I'd just like to thank you for watching and welcome you to the club.